Waiting shapes human life more than decisive moments. Much of faith unfolds not through action, but through endurance, expectation, and silence. Scripture preserves lives marked by patience, where hope is sustained across years without visible fulfillment. In these lives, faith matures slowly, preparing the heart to recognize meaning when it finally appears. The meeting of the Lord belongs to this spiritual landscape. It is not a feast of movement or miracle, but of recognition. What occurs in the temple is quiet, almost hidden. Yet within this stillness, the long expectation of Israel reaches fulfillment, received not by rulers or priests, but by those who had learned how to wait. This documentary explores the meeting of the Lord as preserved by the Orthodox Church, a moment where promise enters history, where old age encounters infancy, and where salvation is recognized not through power, but through discernment formed by prayer, vigilance, and patience. The meeting of the Lord unfolds within the rhythm of the law. 40 days after his birth, Christ is brought to the temple in accordance with the commandments given to Israel. This act is not symbolic alone. It reflects obedience rooted in continuity, where divine promise enters human history without abolishing what came before. Mary and Joseph approach the temple not as figures of status, but as faithful observers of the law. Their offering is modest, revealing their place among the poor. The humility of the moment is essential. Salvation does not enter through display, but through obedience quietly fulfilled within ordinary ritual. The temple itself stands as the heart of Israel's worship. It represents sacrifice, expectation, and divine presence. Yet on this day, the one who is himself the true temple enters its courts as an infant. The fullness of God is carried in human arms, concealed within vulnerability rather than revealed through authority. This encounter affirms continuity rather than rupture. Christ is not presented against the law, but within it. The Church understands this moment as confirmation that salvation unfolds through fulfillment, not negation. Obedience becomes the vessel through which revelation is received. The law prepares recognition. Without it, the meeting would pass unnoticed. Ritual forms perception, training the faithful to see meaning beyond appearance. What seems ordinary becomes revelatory when patience has shaped the eye and heart. Thus, the stage is set not for spectacle, but for discernment. The temple becomes the place where waiting encounters fulfillment, and where the faithful learn that God's arrival often appears indistinguishable from ordinary obedience. Simeon appears in the Gospel as a figure shaped by long fidelity. Tradition preserves him as righteous and attentive, formed through years of prayer rather than prominence. His life unfolds within expectation sustained over time, where hope is not hurried and fulfillment is entrusted to God rather than demanded through action. Scripture records that Simeon had received a promise. He would not see death before encountering the Messiah. This promise did not remove uncertainty. It required endurance. Each passing year tested trust, asking whether expectation would mature into peace or dissolve into resignation. Simeon's faith endured through continuity rather than intensity. On the day of the meeting, Simeon enters the temple guided by the Spirit. Recognition does not arise from signs or announcement. It unfolds through discernment formed by prayer. The child appears as any other infant brought according to the law, yet Simeon perceives meaning where others see routine. When Simeon receives Christ in his arms, waiting reaches completion. The gesture is simple and intimate. Salvation is not grasped, but received. His words express fulfillment rather than excitement, relief rather than triumph. The long arc of expectation resolves into peace shaped by trust kept over time. The hymn spoken by Simeon reveals how recognition reshapes life. Having seen salvation, he is ready for departure. Completion does not cling to continuation. Fulfillment releases him from the need to remain. Faith reaches maturity when hope no longer demands extension. Simeon's blessing also acknowledges cost. He speaks of division, suffering, and the piercing of the heart. Recognition carries weight. Salvation enters history without removing pain. The meeting reveals that fulfillment does not eliminate struggle. It gives it meaning. The Church remembers Simeon as Saint Simeon the God-receiver, not for action, but for discernment. His life teaches that recognition belongs to those shaped by patience, whose eyes are trained to see God's work unfolding quietly within time. This chapter reveals that waiting itself becomes vocation. Simeon's faith was formed through years that appeared unchanged. The meeting discloses that such time was not empty. It was preparation, shaping perception, so that fulfillment could be recognized when it finally arrived. Anna appears briefly in the Gospel, yet her presence carries weight shaped by constancy. She is introduced as a prophetess, advanced in years, whose life has unfolded within the temple through fasting, prayer, and watchfulness. Her witness emerges from continuity rather than interruption, formed through attention sustained across decades. Tradition preserves Anna as one who remained near the place of worship without withdrawal from the world. Widowhood did not lead her into isolation. It drew her into deeper service. Her days were ordered by prayer and remembrance, allowing time itself to become an offering shaped by vigilance. Anna's recognition of Christ unfolds without recorded dialogue. Scripture emphasizes her response rather than her words. She gives thanks and speaks to those who awaited redemption. Recognition moves outward, carried through testimony shared with others, shaped by expectation similar to her own. Her role complements Simeon's, where his recognition concludes a personal promise. Hers extends outward into proclamation. What is received inwardly becomes announcement within the community of those who wait. The meeting thus gathers witnesses whose lives have been formed by different expressions of the same faithfulness. Anna's prophecy does not predict future events in detail. It identifies presence. She discerns meaning already unfolding. Her speech confirms what has arrived rather than projecting what remains distant. Prophecy here functions as clarity, revealing fulfillment within the present moment shaped by long preparation. The Church remembers Anna as Saint Anna the Prophetess, honoring her vigilance as a form of wisdom. Her life teaches that attentiveness, sustained without interruption, prepares the heart to recognize salvation when it appears without announcement. This chapter reveals a shared pattern. Waiting becomes active through prayer. Time is transformed into readiness. Anna's witness affirms that faith shaped by vigilance does not fade with age. It sharpens perception, enabling recognition that blesses not only the individual, but the whole community. The hymn spoken by Simeon ends Christ as light for revelation and glory for Israel. Light here signifies disclosure rather than comfort alone. It reveals reality as it is, bringing clarity that exposes both hope and resistance. Salvation enters history, illuminating hearts, unveiling responses that will differ according to disposition and readiness. This light does not overwhelm the temple with signs. It rests quietly within the child, requiring discernment shaped by prayer to be perceived. Revelation unfolds through recognition, asking the faithful to interpret presence rather than await interruption. The meeting teaches that light is received through attentiveness formed over time. Simeon's words also speak of division. Salvation gathers and separates. The same presence that consoles will unsettle. The heart is tested as it encounters truth that cannot be neutral. Acceptance or resistance emerges according to how waiting has formed conscience and desire. Mary stands within this declaration, receiving words that acknowledge sorrow ahead. The path of salvation includes suffering carried in trust. The prophecy does not remove uncertainty. It places it within meaning. Faith is invited to endure with clarity, understanding that fulfillment does not dissolve cost. The Church receives this teaching within the rhythm of prayer. Candles carried during the feast express participation in this light. The gesture is deliberate and restrained. Light is born, not consumed. The faithful carry what has been received into the world shaped by expectation and patience. This chapter reveals that salvation is weighty. It does not rush. It enters gently, forming conscience and demanding response. The meeting gathers law, promise, waiting, and revelation into a single moment that continues to shape the Church's understanding of how God is recognized within history. The Church receives the meeting of the Lord within the rhythm of liturgical time. This feast is not isolated. It stands at the intersection of Nativity and Pascha, linking incarnation to offering, birth to sacrifice. The 40 days that precede it are not merely chronological. They shape perception, allowing recognition to mature through patience. Within worship, the feast gathers memory and presence. Scripture is proclaimed, hymns are sung, and the faithful participate bodily through procession and light. These actions do not reenact the past. They allow the same mystery to be encountered anew, shaping the Church's present through the continuity of prayer and remembrance. Time itself becomes a teacher. The meeting shows that fulfillment arrives neither abruptly nor without preparation. The Church learns to wait as Simeon and Anna waited, trusting that God's promise unfolds according to wisdom rather than urgency. Faith is formed through endurance that accepts delay without loss of hope. This feast also speaks to departure. Simeon's readiness to die reveals a faith that no longer clings to extension. Having seen salvation, life is released into God's keeping. The Church receives this as instruction, learning that fulfillment grants freedom rather than attachment, peace rather than demand. The meeting of the Lord remains a feast of discernment. It teaches how to recognize God's presence when it appears within ordinary obedience, quiet ritual, and long fidelity. The Church is reminded that revelation often enters history without disturbance, asking for eyes trained by prayer and hearts shaped by waiting. In preserving this feast, the Church preserves a way of seeing. Law and promise, age and infancy, waiting and fulfillment converge within a single moment that continues to instruct every generation. The meeting remains present wherever faith is formed through patience, vigilance, and trust in God's time. If this documentary helped you reflect on patience, recognition, and the quiet fulfillment of God's promise, you are welcome to remain with us. This channel is dedicated to preserving the memory of Orthodox saints and feasts with historical care, reverence, and faithfulness to the tradition of the Church. Here, we explore moments where faith is formed through waiting, vigilance, and discernment. By subscribing, you support content that keeps this rhythm alive, allowing the wisdom of the Church to continue shaping how we see, receive, and live the mystery entrusted to us.